Hello everyone. Do you know why gas prices went from $1 to $2 a liter within a period of 3 years? Well, today I will be explaining what inflation is and how it's impacting our daily lives and making our cost of living way more expensive. I will also be talking about what shrinkflation is, as I've personally seen this while eating at a fast food restaurant, and be telling you why I'm not happy about it. For those who don't know me, my name is Ryan Banks and my channel is about financial tips and tricks that you can bank on. And I post videos every second Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you're not subscribed to the channel and you like my content, you should consider hitting that subscribe button so that you can help me reach more people like you. So inflation can be a very complicated topic, so I'm going to try my best to explain what inflation is the best way possible, so that you can understand why the prices of goods and services are increasing significantly lately. So in my opinion, inflation is caused by these two main things: low interest rates and the government printing more money. So obviously there's a lot of other factors, but I will talk about these two factors today. So when the government is printing more money, that means more people have more money to spend. And when you have more money to spend, you're more likely to actually spend it on different products or goods and services. When you're spending more on those products, that means everybody else is doing that. So that creates a low supply in the market. And when there is a low supply in the market, that's when businesses and corporations will increase their prices. Because when things are more expensive for the same thing, you're less likely to buy it. So that's how it stabilizes that demand. So when those businesses increases those prices, that is inflation in a nutshell. The other factor that I talked about was low interest rates. So when there's low interest rates, that means it costs less for you to take out money. So when it costs less, you're more likely to take out or get a bigger loan than you normally would. And when you do take out those loans or bigger loans, you're more likely to spend more because you have more money available to you at your disposal. So if I just confuse you, don't you worry, because I got a couple great examples here for you to understand what inflation is. So when COVID first hit, the government came out with subsidies to help individuals and businesses stay afloat and pay their daily expenses. So these programs were served for individuals, and businesses had rent relief and interest-free loans for a certain period of time. So this is essentially the government printing more money or putting more money into the economy, which gave more people more money to spend. And when things were locked down, where you couldn't travel, go to restaurants, or do something local, people had more money to buy products. And that's why you're seeing a shortage of various different types of products out there. So another thing is, when the government came out with all these subsidies and people had a lot more money to spend, people were less willing to get loans because they actually had cash to buy those products. And people don't always like having debt. So when the demand for debt is a lot lower, that decreases the price or the interest rate for loans, which is one of many factors, but it's a good driving force for low interest rates. And when interest rates starting to get low, that's when it's a great time to get a mortgage, and people went out and bought their first homes because it was very cheap to buy mortgages, and people got bigger mortgages because it was cheap to lend that money. So that's why you saw people overbidding on multiple houses by tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars down south in southern Ontario. So that's essentially why there's a big crazy market blitz, and my fiance and I also experienced this while looking for our first home, and it took us 11 bids before we actually got an accepted offer on the house. So with all that being said, that's only two examples. But if you look back 3 years ago, going to the grocery store, buying $100 of food, you would have a lot more 3 years ago than you do today, if you look back of how the costs are for each item. So now that you know what inflation is, now I want to talk to you about what shrinkflation is. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to pretend that you're a business owner. So let's say you own your own bakery and you bake loaves of bread for your customers each morning. And you charge them $5 for each loaf, and you give them a 500-gram loaf. And it costs you $1 per loaf of ingredients. But because inflation is really high right now, the cost of ingredients have gone up to $1.10. or in other terms, your cost went up by 10%. So as a business owner, the first thing you might think of is, well, I need to increase my price to keep the same level of profit. So if you do that, then you would increase your price to $5.50 per loaf, while your cost is $1.10. So the only issue with that is when the price of stuff increases, this might drive away some customers because they're less willing to spend more money for the same product. So some businesses and corporations have found a way to keep the same price, but also keep the same profit level. So the only other way that you can do that is decrease the size of your product. So in this case, we should decrease our loaf size by 10% to 450 grams instead of 500 grams to keep our same profit level. So now, as a business owner, you're going to start making 450 grams of loaf for $5 each. So it's a small decrease and people may not notice right away of the decrease of the size of your product. So this is a very sneaky way that corporations are doing to keep their same profit level. So now I want to hear from you in the comments as to why or how you've seen inflation or shrinkflation in your daily lives and how it's affecting you. Now that you've commented of where you saw inflation or shrinkflation, now let me tell you where I saw shrinkflation lately. So when I went driving down south to see my in-laws, I stopped halfway with my fiance and we went to a fast food restaurant. And I got my food and a bottle of pop that costed me $3.50 for the pop. And when the employee gave me that pop, I looked at the bottle and it looked a lot smaller. So I looked at the size of it and it was only 500 milliliters. Where before they charged me for the same price, but for a bottle of 710 milliliters. So that is shrinkflation, and I'm not very happy that this has happened. But businesses need to do this to keep up their profits, or else they're going to go out of business. So as sad as this is just reality, unfortunately. And I read a couple articles where for the month of June of 2022, inflation was close to 8%, which is insane. So essentially, about a year ago, let's say you got $100 worth of groceries and you buy those same groceries, that's going to now cost you $108. That's a lot of money. And when that accumulates year over year, groceries are again very expensive and everything else. And the other article that I read, which is very sad, is when there was a big blitz for people buying houses, people bought houses at ridiculous prices while the market was really hot. And when it's time for those people to renew those mortgages, the article was saying that 1 out of 4 people are going to have to sell their homes because they won't be able to afford it because interest rates are going to be very high when they do renew those mortgages. So as sad as this is, there are some things that you can do to help prevent that. So one thing is to relook at your budget and allocate a little bit more money for each line item that you have on your budget so that you can keep the same lifestyle. And you may need to cut back on things, but that's just unfortunately the reality of things where things are more expensive. But if you budget that a little bit earlier on, you're more likely to be able to keep the same lifestyle or may potentially not sell your home. To conclude the video, today I went through a couple of examples for you to understand what inflation is and that shrinkflation is an actual thing. But the best thing or best piece of advice I have for you is to allocate more money for each line item on your budget. And if you haven't started a budget yet, this is a great time to start to plan for your future. So before I let you go, I just want to thank you for watching the video. And if you enjoyed this video, you should hit that like and subscribe button to help grow my channel. So thank you again, and I hope you have a great day.